That's gonna be the first thing that's on the meeting.
Notes.
Good evening, everyone. I would like to welcome you to the May 13th Board of Education meeting. We are calling the meeting to order. The time is 7:06 p.m. If everyone could please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Oh, right, okay. A reading of the meeting notice. The New Jersey Open Public Meetings Law was enacted to ensure the right of the public to have advance notice of and to attend the meetings of public bodies at which any business affecting their interests is discussed or acted upon. In accordance with the provision of the Act, the Verona Board of Education has caused notice of this meeting to be published in the Star Ledger, posted with the Township of Verona and the Verona Education Association. Postings of the meeting setting forth the time, location, and agenda were posted at the Verona Board of Education office and on the Verona Public Schools District website. Copies of tonight's agenda and resolutions have been made available to the public via the Board of Education website. Mr. Cruz, could you please call attendance?
Mr. Walker,
Present.
Mrs. Farrar.
Here.
Mrs. Prisco,
Here.
Mrs. Rosella,
Here.
Mr. Boone.
Here.
We have quorum.
Thank you. Can I please get a motion to approve the minutes of the last meeting?
So moved.
Moved by Mr. Boone,
Second.
second by Mr. Walker. Any discussion? Okay, can we please have roll call?
Walker,
Yes.
Mrs. Farrar,
Yes.
Mrs. Prisco,
Yes.
Mrs. Rosella,
Yes,
Mr. Boone.
Yes.
Motion carries.
thank you. Can we start with the superintendent report, please, Ms. Giuseppe?
So last meeting, I mentioned that the school performance.
I don't think you're in the mic.
Yeah, I think your mic is off. Yeah. Got
Okay,
it, thanks.
better?
Yeah.
Okay, sorry about that. During last meeting, I mentioned that the school performance reports had been released, and I would review some of the highlights with the board at this meeting. The good news is that as of last year's accountability summary, there were 9 indicators that we did not meet. This year, however, we have met all of district-wide, we met all of our standards, our goals, and our targets. And basically the way the state organizes that is standards are the foundational benchmark against which a school or school district's performance is measured. For example, the school's median school growth point may be compared to a state standard. Goals represent long-term aspirations for all students or student groups. For example, New Jersey's long-term goal for graduation rate is 95% of the students to graduate within 4 years and 96% to graduate within 5 years. And targets are specific measurable annual milestones. So the fact that we, in all of the categories, with the exception of one subgroup that did not meet math growth, we have met in every other category. So that's a huge jump for 1 year. And we also saw our our summative rating. So each school gets a summative rating, except for Brookdale, it's too small. So our average summative rating, which is based on math and language growth, math and language proficiency, and chronic absenteeism. We saw an increase of 10 percentile points across 1 year. And it's notable that both FN Brown and Lanning have shown commendable improvement. FN Brown increased in 1 year by 27 percentile points, and Lanning by 6 percentile points. Chronic absenteeism is also down by 1.5% this year. Our enrollment went up across this year by 30 students and over the 2-year period by 53 students. This Friday night, May 16th, VFE Inspiring Excellent, formerly known as the Teacher Toast, will be held at the Verona Community Center at 7:30 to 10:30. You can still get tickets if you'd like to go. Catering will be by Verona American Grill, and music by Mr. Morden, Max Morden and Friends. There will be a raffle to raise money for VFE. The teachers that are being honored this year are Megan Lavoie from Brookdale, Jeannie Sapienza from FM Brown, Kaylee Sella from Forest Ave, Sage Nardi from Lanning Ave, Brian Miklowski from HB Whitehorn Middle School, who is down in the auditorium tonight with the band and choir, and at the high school, Paula Ramos. And we are also having one of our paraprofessionals, Kim Ratzenberger at HBW Middle School honored. The end of year festivities are being planned or have begun. Field days, fun nights, clap outs, and National Honor Society inductions at the high school, end of the year field trips, and move up day, including a new move up day or hillbilly day here at the high school for our 8th graders. More to come on that. I'm waiting for the overview from Mr. Cogbill as to what that's going to look like. A staffing update, we have one elementary teacher. The location is FN Brown, grade 1. That's a bubble section. Middle school math teacher, grade 6. We are actually the elementary position, Dr. Lorenzo is just finished round 1 interviews. The middle school, we have a math teacher, grade 6. A final candidate has been selected, and I'll be meeting with that person next week. We have a special education opening at HBW as well. We're accepting applications currently. At the high school, we have an opening for an English teacher we are currently interviewing for. We have a need for a special education teacher at the high school. We are accepting applications for, and social studies, business education. It can be either. We're looking for a business teacher, but if we wanted to do financial literacy as a combination with social studies, you can teach financial literacy with a math, business, or social studies certification. And that is my report for this evening.
I have a question.
Sure.
So I love seeing visitors here. We haven't had that in a while. And I imagine based on my review of my emails, we're going to be talking a lot about grade 2 in Lanning.
Mhm.
I know what it's like to be someone that's waiting to speak before the board. So I'm definitely looking forward to hearing all the voices that come out tonight. What does this board need to know before we dive into this issue as being statements of fact?
In what way? I mean, that we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 classes at 24, 25, or 26 across the district already. 2 of the kindergarten classes at Lanning are at 25 currently. Well, one's 25, the other's 24. And then we have a 25 and a 24 at FN Brown as well. The issue is when you have kindergarten, administrative code says that you can't have more than 25 in a kindergarten without splitting the class, putting an instructional aide in that class, or, putting some other adult in there. So what happens in places like Verona that have 4 smaller schools, we get what we refer to as bubble sections. Once they come out of kindergarten, though, I'll give you an example from 2023. When I got here in 2022, one of the first things I did was add a bubble section to Brookdale because Mrs. Studo had indicated that she had 27 students registered for kindergarten. So putting a paraprofessional in a classroom it would help, but we can't get paras for our IEPs. So we have trouble finding paras. So we split the class, 2 students moved the following year. We're back down to 25. Now we're down to 24. We collapsed that section. We needed, because of the enrollment in the current 1st grade at Lanning, we needed to split Lanning, add a bubble section in kindergarten at Lanning and at Forest. So maintaining the Brookdale section was impossible given our budget. So what's happening now is because of some shifting, we still have 56 at Forest Avenue, and 51. It's 53, but there are students that are not in the gen ed classroom at Lanning. So when you look at across the district and this board knows that this budget was almost impossible to balance. And we're still kind of struggling to come up with, money for next year because of just the difficulty that we have. And I commend, and we've all commended Mr. Cruz on the work that he did to get us to a point where we can feel comfortable that we're not going to run out of salary money next year. So that's where we are. We are at class sizes that are going to at Lanning grade 2 next year that will mimic what we have across the district in many other spots. And I think I can speak for the board. I've said this in almost every email. Nobody wants to see class sizes at 24 and 25, but that is what's happening in public education as school districts are not adequately funded from the state of New Jersey. We recently also had to, we were funding the only 2 interventionists that we have in this district, reading interventionists, we were funding with Title I funds. Title I has been cut every year for the past 4 or 5 years. And so we could not sustain paying their salaries. So their salaries went into the general budget, further compounding a lack of funds to add or to keep class sizes below 25.
So I know that all of us voted yes to the maximum tax increase we were legally allowed to impose. And I know that the budget's passed. I guess my question is, and it seems like the numbers landing are going to be high in that particular grade level, but not like comparatively, it doesn't look like it's like a crazy outlier. But 3 people could sell their house that have no kids, and now we have, families of 4 moving in, right? With twins all in that grade level. If we saw a disparity, and I'm not saying that, if I was a parent, I would even say yes to this option, but everyone's situation is different and their priorities are different. If we saw that either Brookdale or FN or what's the other one, Forest, were particularly low or had people move out of district, would we consider giving the option for parents that said, class size is important to me, and that's what I covet most?
Actually, we've done that. 2 years ago, we rewrote a policy that allows me to place students if the class is too large at an alternate non-jurisdictional school, if they register after the budget's been set. But last year in FM Brown, it was getting tight. We had already had a bubble section at Brookdale. And so we had 2 classes over there, 13 and 14. And as FN Brown's enrollment went up above 25, we offered those parents to go to Brookdale, and we had, 7 or 8 takers. And so they filled those sections at Brookdale, and it satisfied not having to split add a bubble section at Brown. So yes, that's absolutely always an option, as long as there's room.
Thank you. Thank you, Superintendent.
Thank you, Mr. Baca. Moving on, Ryan, do you want to give the student report, please?
Right. Good evening. So these 2 past weeks have been AP testing at VHS. And as we wrap up the second week, I'd just like to take the time to recognize the efforts of our AP students at the high school. These rigorous college level courses are definitely not a small undertaking. And I firmly believe that we have a very strong and accessible AP program here at VHS. A lot of people I know take AP classes. The rosters are always like filled to the brim. So I just like to congratulate our dedicated students and hardworking AP teachers for their efforts to make VHS the school that it is, basically. So in terms of testing as well, VHS will also be administering NJSLA testing next week. And in sports, we continue to celebrate our wonderful seniors with senior nights for tennis, baseball, softball, and girls lacrosse. And speaking of seniors, capstone programs will be starting next week, where our seniors are given the liberty to pursue real world experience in their field of study for the rest of school year. And also next week, there will be induction ceremonies for various honor societies here at VHS. And May 22nd will be chamber night in the band room, and we'll spotlight chamber and classical music performances by VHS students. And the annual Creative Arts Night will be held in the VHS gym on May 28th, and it will feature galleries of various art pieces and videos produced by students, as well as live music performed by students.
What day was that one?
The 28th.
28th.
And that is my report for the evening. Thank you.
Thank
Oh.
you.
Thanks, Ryan.
Can I ask a question on that?
Sure.
Ryan mentioned the Capstone Program, and Mrs. Di Giuseppe, I'm not sure if you can answer this. Do we have numbers on participation rates in the Capstone and how they have grown or not over the last couple of years?
My fingertips, but I can get that for the next meeting.
Just be curious. I know I saw it firsthand when it was rolled out a couple of years ago. And I saw a market improvement over the last year or two on that. So I'm just curious to how the popularity is growing.
That for you by next week, next month.
Thank you.
No, the end of the month.
And those March 28th, yeah. Okay, moving on. We have no presentations. There's no committee reports. We're gonna open the floor up for public comments on agenda action items only. Please note that the public participation portion of the meeting affords the opportunity of the public to speak and share comments about school-related topics. While we may not respond to comments during the meeting, all input is shared with all input that is shared with the Board of Education is taken very seriously and helps inform future deliberations and work by the board. Answers appear in many forms, including but not limited to email, superintendent committee reports, board statements, frequently asked questions on the website, or after public comment is closed. Comments will be limited to 3 minutes per person, and they are limited to only items that we are voting on this agenda. If you do come up, you must state your name, and if there is something to be answered, it will be answered only by the superintendent or board president. Thank you.
And just to make it clear, because I'm sure there's at least one person, it's their first time at a board meeting. If you want to talk about something that's not on the agenda, we're going to have that opportunity towards the end of the meeting.
Seeing no one come up, and we're moving on to, is it on an agenda action item? Okay, can you just tell us which item number?
As well as the for holders.
Personnel.
Personnel.
Mhm. Okay,
Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Sarah Oconor. I'm on Floyd Road. I have 2 perspectives tonight. One, as the parent of a current first grader at Lanning, who will be directly affected by Ms. McHugh's move, as well as a former teacher of the district for 11 years. I spent 1 year at FM Brown and 10 years at HBW. Concerning the first grade class, both Lanning and Forest have had large classes for 2 consecutive years, not just kindergarten. These classes warranted 3 sections. Rather than maintain the 3 sections of both groups, Lanning is losing our 3rd section. Not because Lanning's numbers are decreasing, but because the section is being removed. What was once 6 teachers between the 2 schools is now 5. Plain and simple, that is a loss to Lanning and our children. Concerning enrollment, Lanning's numbers are not anticipated to go down at any significant rate anytime soon, as 29 active listings as of today in Verona. Out of 29, 20 of them are zoned at Lanning Ave. The district is also renaming Mrs. Laura Kohler, her current role as Supervisor of Special Services, to Assistant Principal of Special Services. And as Ms. Di Giuseppe, you had described in our email correspondence on May 8th, quote, the title change will allow Mrs. Kohler to work more closely with the 2 elementary schools that have the highest number of students with IEPs. I'm having a very hard time rationalizing that Lanning, being one of these schools with the most needs, requires an additional administrator. And at the very same time, you're removing the greatest asset to our students, which is a classroom teacher and manageable class sizes. This is counterproductive. And put simply, who will have a greater benefit to the students, and another administrator or a classroom teacher? I would also like to know what other budgetary cuts were deemed more important to maintain than the third section of this second grade that's starting in September. When and why did this third section become expendable? I would also like to know, has there been any consideration in consulting the 3 first grade teachers at Lanning right now? I received several responses to this question comparing current numbers of classes across the district, but our main concern is this class specifically. And this is where we need to consider our resources from the bottom up and not the top down. Having been in the classroom for 11 years in Verona and having taught a variety of class sizes, there is not a single part of me that can say, this is not a big deal, because it is. And it's going to directly impact our kids who have had 3 sections justifiably since kindergarten. Our kids will feel the effects, and their teachers will as well, their second grade teachers next year. And we value that more than anything. So we are asking not for more, but to maintain
time
what
is
we
up.
already have.
Excuse me,
and
Ms. O'Connor, your
continue
time
the
is up.
second grade.
Thank you.
I also have on the agenda in regards to Ms. McHugh moving from Lanning to Forest. Good evening, members of the board. I thank you for the, sure, Cassidy Pererna. I thank you for the opportunity to speak tonight. My name is Cassidy Pererna, and I'm here to express my concerns over the plan to combine the incoming second grade class at Lanning Elementary School from its current 3 sections into 2. As a third-generation Verona resident, VHS graduate, and mother to 4 small children, it goes without saying that I am very invested in the success of our public school system. When my husband, also a VHS graduate, and I decided to buy a home, I said, find me something better than Verona, and I will consider moving there. The fact is, it doesn't exist. As I'm sure you are aware, stories like mine are what make Verona special. While there are many reasons families flock to our town and generations continue to raise their children here, I can be sure that one of, if not the most important reasons, are our neighborhood schools and our fantastic public school system. I will be the first to admit I was uneducated as to how constrained the board's budget was for the upcoming school year until I discovered the board's plan was to consolidate my son's class. I would like to thank Ms. Verzella for referring me to the joint Board of Ed Town Council meeting. And while I appreciate the board's efforts to make cuts that would have the least amount of impact, as far as my son, his grade, and the teachers are concerned, this leaves them with the bleeding. I wouldn't be doing my job advocating for my child if I wasn't standing here before you tonight asking you to reconsider. We are not asking for more. We are asking for what has been. We are asking for the precedent that was set by the district for the past 2 years. We are asking for these children and teachers to receive the same support that has led this class to thrive. In the emails I have sent to the board, I stated that these children are more than just a number on a piece of paper and should be treated as such. This class, as Mr. Freund likes to say, is an energetic bunch of kids, to say the least. Clearly, having a smaller number of children in each classroom allows the staff to be able to best support every child. In a world where inclusion is of the utmost importance, it is imperative that we give the support needed to ensure that everyone succeeds. My concern is with such a large group of students in the classroom, the same success is not feasible. I am equally sympathetic and concerned that these class sizes are becoming the new norm within our district. I understand no one was happy with the cuts that needed to take place. That being said, my ask for tonight is not to solve the district's bigger problem. That battle is for another day. My ask, and frankly, my plea, is for the board to reconsider this decision and explore other alternatives, whether that means adjusting other plan changes or utilizing surplus on the revenue side of the budget. I implore you to take a hard look at the decision to consolidate this class. I thank you for your time and consideration.
Thank you.
Good evening, Veronica Ericson, Claremont Avenue. Good evening, members of the board, district administration, and our Lanning community. Thank you for your detailed email correspondence ahead of this meeting. I appreciate the transparency and thoughtfulness in addressing district-wide staffing and class size challenges. That said, while I recognize the need for difficult decisions, it's critical to remember these are not just numbers on a spreadsheet. These decisions directly impact our children's classrooms and our teachers' ability to meet their needs. Despite the communication we've received, one key question remains unanswered. What is the specific threshold for determining when 3 sections are required? This is especially relevant for Lanning's current 2nd grade class, a class that qualified for 3 sections since the start of kindergarten. 2nd grade is a pivotal year. It's when students transition from learning to read to reading to learn. Larger class sizes at this stage aren't just a logistical concern. They carry real academic and emotional consequences. Teachers are being asked to do more with less. Morale is understandably strained and low at Lanning. Every additional student means less individual attention, more behavioral challenges, and greater difficulty delivering differential instruction. From the special education standpoint, this issue is even more urgent. As it stands, 20% of students have an IEP or a speech IEP, as you noted in your email tonight. That number does not include 504 plans. 2nd grade is a common year for initial classifications, which means multiple students with significant needs will be clustered together. When class sizes increase under these conditions, it doesn't just impact instruction. It raises serious concerns about compliance and student outcomes. So I urge the board to consider these decisions, not just in the context of a budget, but through the lens of what it means for our students, our teachers, and our commitment to equitable and high equality education. Thank you.
Thank you.
Sorry. Hi, my name is Stephanie Povarellic. I have 2 children currently enrolled at Lanning. My oldest is an incoming 2nd grader. I'm here to speak on behalf of my child, the other children going into 2nd grade, and our wonderful teachers who will all be negatively impacted by the decision this board has to make today. From my perspective, the board has been reactive in their approach to quickly settling a budget issue. After meeting with Mr. Freunds, 2 things have become apparent to me. Number 1, the teachers were not consulted when this change was made, nor did the superintendent or anyone voting on this decision take the time to assess in person or otherwise the needs of this Lanning grade. You are making decisions based on treating our children as if they are numbers rather than the multifaceted human beings that they are. Number 2, Mr. Freund reassured me that if this change was not working because this is an energetic class, he's used that for multiple parents, he would take immediate action to hire a resource to provide additional support. My response to him at the time, and my question to the board now is, why do we have to wait for our children to fail in order to provide them with the resource they need to have a successful academic year? My additional concern is, I understand that you've gone through budgeting issues and that's been discussed during Board of Ed meetings. When we reached out to Diane, she had suggested that we proactively reach out to our representatives. Why were we not told there were budgeting issues? Like, I don't understand why emails weren't sent out. We get the Verona folder on a weekly basis. I had no idea that we should be reaching out to our representatives. I don't understand why we can't be more proactive with this information. As soon as I found out about the teacher, I emailed all of the parents that were going to be impacted. I told them to email you guys. I asked them to show up to these meetings. Why can't we be more proactive with our constituents? Furthermore, I urge the board to review the optics that this decision will have. Using graderschools.org, Lanning Elementary has the lowest state test scores, the most IEPs and 504s, and the highest minority population within Verona's elementary schools. Lanning also hosts the LSS, the Language Sensory Program. This change would put 26 kids in each second grade classroom at Lanning, the highest number of the second grade students across Verona. This is inequitable, and it feels almost discriminatory to remove a resource from a student population that so very obviously has a documented need for the additional teaching resource and average class size. Finally, I asked the board to reassess the budget and the need for any additional administrative positions that they currently have filled. Most Fortune 500 companies are running as lean as possible, putting scheduling meetings and running calendars back onto their VPs and executives. Is there a need to have executive assistants within the Verona Board of Education? I would urge the board to remove a back office resource in favor for a very much needed frontline teacher. Thank you.
Melissa Vearelli, Claremont Avenue. I'm here as the parent of a Lanning Avenue student, and I want to express some concerns regarding the move of Carrie McHugh to Forest Avenue School, which directly results in the collapse of the incoming second grade class at Lanning Avenue. Reducing 3 classes to 2 significantly increases student to teacher ratio. Second graders who are still developing basic skills benefit greatly from small group instruction and one-on-one attention. Overcrowded classrooms make it harder for teachers to identify and support struggling students early, potentially widening achievement gaps. I've seen firsthand how the addition of just one student in a 4th grade classroom has had negative impacts already on the other students in the classroom. At this developmental stage, 7 and 8 years old, students require clear routines and structures. Teachers now will be spending more time managing behaviors than delivering instruction, resulting in lost learning time for all students. Teachers will be on behavior management for most, if not all of the day. In email correspondence, it was noted that there will not be additional support provided to manage these larger groups. So how do we plan to ensure individualized attention with larger class sizes? We know that the teachers were not consulted before this decision was made, and we know that the parents probably wouldn't have found out about it until the move already happened. Did the board at all consider the needs of the students in each group with 3 sections, Lanning and Forest, to make the decision based on behalf of the students? Or was this solely a budgetary-based decision with no concern for how it will affect the students? It feels as though the students were not considered at all, and this was all budgetary. Will the teachers have enough time to assess each student's progress and adjust instruction accordingly? How will struggling students receive additional support they need to stay on track? How will the district monitor academic performance to assure that no student falls behind during or after this transition? In a larger group, it is much easier for the kids struggling to fall in the cracks. Are there plans to monitor and support student and teacher well-being during this transition? This is a huge mental load we are placing on our second grade teachers. What is the plan when students begin to suffer because of larger class sizes and lack of support? Again, why are we waiting for our kids to fail and our teachers to burn out before we do something about it? Mr. Freund had said that if additional support is needed, he will then hire someone, but why are we waiting for that point? Please reconsider a decision that will have nothing but devastating effects on our children and our teachers. Thank you.
Anyone else?
Good evening. My name is Aong Gal at 49 Woodland Avenue. I'm here to speak because what I just heard is that we're putting money before our children. I'm a lawyer by practice, and I've done my fair share of family law. And in every aspect of the law, when it comes to children, it's the best interest of the child. What is best for the child? And when the board consolidated these classes, I don't believe the board fully considered that would be in the best interest of our children to consolidate these classes. I've done my research on these cases, and they all say that children do better in smaller classrooms. You know, a professor at Seton Hall said it very best. You may have some good students, and you may not have some. You may have not so bright students in the classroom. But he said, but students in small classrooms always did better. That's just a fact of it. There was a study done by Harvard. 7,000 children were studied, and they all found that children in smaller classrooms did better. And when we talk about money, you know, our own professor at Seton Hall said that when you have smaller classrooms, you will find that almost no kids are in special education. But when you don't, you find too many children, too many students in the early years get put in special education, and they never get out, and that becomes very expensive. I've done all the research here, and I'm going to leave it here for the board. I also looked into the case where it's the Abbott district, right? Abbott district tells you that in certain cities, you can't have too many children. They have champions of justice fighting for these children in Abbott district. Who is fighting for our children in Verona? Children of middle class, working parents, blue collar, who are fighting for them? Our children are asking that you guys fight for them, not put them in a larger classrooms where they're going to fail and they're going to impede in the future. Smaller classrooms do better for our children. And that should be the standard for the board, not some budgetary constraint. What is best for our children? They were asking you guys to fight for them. Are you going to stand up to fight for them? They were asking you guys to put their future ahead of some budgetary constraint. And that is why we are here. That's why we moved to Verona. Verona is such a great place to live. I can't even move out of Verona because my children don't want to move out of Verona. And that's why we are here. We are asking you guys to help them, to put their best interest first before some dollar amount. Thank you. I'm going to be here for you.
Hello, losing my voice. My name is Joy Lorenzo. I live at 44 Otsego Road. This is regarding Mrs. McHugh moving to Forest Avenue. I can tell you right now, I'm a second grade teacher. Here I am with my hoarse voice from teaching all the time. I've been teaching for over 20 years, mostly in second and third grade. I have a second grader and a first grader at Lanning that is directly impacted by this. I'm speaking because I know as a teacher, you feel very helpless in these situations, and you need the parents to kind of do like everything that you wish you can, you know, as a teacher, where you can't say everything that you can say. I'm a concerned parent and community member regarding the upcoming second grade class size. This is a significant increase from the 17 students our children had in their classrooms this year. While I understand that the budget and logistics often drive these decisions, I respectfully ask you to reconsider this increase in light of its potential impact on student outcomes, teacher well-being, and the quality of instruction. We are fortunate that Verona has made meaningful investments in evidence-based instruction, such as the science of reading and other components of a structured literacy approach. These programs are not simply curricula, they are methods of teaching that demand a high degree of individualization, ongoing assessment, and personal connection between teacher and student. With class sizes of 25, which honestly I've never gone beyond in all my years of teaching, the ability for teacher to implement these programs with fidelity becomes increasingly strained. Structured literacy is most effective when teachers can monitor students closely and intervene early. In a room with 25 second graders, many of whom may be at very different stages in their reading development, it becomes extremely difficult for even the most experienced, which we have very experienced and loved teachers at Lanning, to provide that differentiated instruction that is essential for all students to succeed. The larger the class, the more students risk slipping through the cracks. Beyond academics, connection matters. In second grade, children are still developing their sense of self, their confidence in learning, and their emotional regulation skills. They love to come to a carpet and tell their teachers everything that's going on in their life. All week, all month, I'm hearing about their communions, they're sharing pictures. When you have up to 30 kids in a classroom, what are you giving them, like 30 seconds to share on that carpet? They're not even going to fit on the carpet. Let's be honest. The carpet might not even be in the room. The small table will be moved out where you're supposed to be doing your small group instruction, where you're supposed to be working on all the things that you as a teacher know that they need. Teachers run out of time. When you put that many kids in a class, the time is getting smaller and smaller for each student. I respectfully urge the board to reconsider the staffing for the upcoming second grade class and get creative with
Thank you.
who you have here. Thank you so much.
Good evening. My name is Janette Cichlano, and my daughter Alexandra Cichlano will be going into second grade. I would like to start off with class size really should matter. All kids deserve the opportunity to learn and grow. And how can students succeed and thrive in a classroom setting where a teacher doesn't have the adequate class support? How do the students get the attention to succeed? Educating young people as well who are culturally different are potentially the same sometimes requires individual attention, which is difficult in an overcrowded classroom. A reduction in class size is also a reduction in the achievement gap. With having fewer kids in a classroom, it gives the teacher to have the opportunity to aid and help any child that's in need. Academic and behavioral issues can be addressed adequately. Putting myself in the second grade mindset, if I am not getting the proper one-on-one attention, I would say to myself, why am I here? I can't get one-on-one time and I can't get help. More than likely, I myself would act out, and I can't imagine other kids not doing the same or being perplexed or possibly upset on what to do, causing these students to have unnecessary stress. This could cause a negative impact on their daily routine. In smaller classes, students spend less time off task or disengaged from the work of the class. Small class sizes make it easier to manage the learning environment and give educators a sense of pride in the classroom. Teachers would be happier and feel more fulfilled when they could provide quality instruction. For a student, individual attention can make the difference between effectively developing skills and just coasting along. Generally, in smaller classes, students can also establish stronger relationships with their instructors. Those relationships, I think, should be very important to students and teachers and can definitely lead to better outcomes for both. I acknowledge the district's financial challenges, but urge the Board of Education to explore alternative solutions that protect second grade education. Reducing resources will significantly affect students and educators, and viable options exist to address financial concerns without compromising classroom quality. With potential enrollment increases, what contingency plans are in place to ensure adequate support? We encourage the board to consider staffing adjustments, securing funding, and engaging parents and teachers in developing sustainable solutions. I trust that you will thoughtfully prioritize classroom quality and a supportive learning environment for all students. Your leadership in this matter is appreciated, and I look forward to a well-considered resolution.
Thank you.
Hi. I don't have any prepared notes. I'll just start with who I am and my background in education, but my name is Moran Foley. I grew up in this town. I moved back to this town because of how it served me so well. And I'm very often complimented by everyone I meet. Oh, you live in Verona. That's so great. Such a great town. And it is. And I've been so proud that just in recent years, we've been able to change some things. We got full day K, right? We can make change. We can talk about things. But to my background in education, so I'm also a 25-year plus educator. I have worked in a lot of different types of environments, and many of those have been where I have had to serve children in a 35-person classroom. Okay, and I'm telling you that well, it's made me a better parent, right? There's a lot of things I can do because I was put in that situation, but I did not thrive. I barely survived, and I did it because I cared. But it was so hard. And I just want to say, like, why work hard when we can work smart? I just know that we can find a better solution to this. And I think what happens is that parents like these right here, we're all here because it's us right now. But we know in Verona that if it was your kid, right, you would be here right now trying to figure out what's best for your child. And at every age level, if this becomes a concern, I'm not going to get those compliments that I get all the time. Oh, you live in Verona with such a great school system, right? Who listens to the people, who makes the right changes for the child. And I'm just shocked, you know, it's really hard. You get fired up. You're like, well, why? I don't understand the why. So I think whatever happens, we need you to help us understand the why. And it can't just be it's finances. That can't be the answer, because it's always going to be finances. People are dying to live into this town. Every ounce of land is being fixed up to get more in here. We're going to run into across this issue all the time. So all I ask is that if this is the issue now, how are we learning for it? How are we preparing for the future? And how are we making sure that we put our kids in classrooms that have no more than 25? I mean, 25 max. It just is not sustainable for the teacher. I'm speaking from experience. It doesn't work. It just plain doesn't work. And I'm just imploring you to think about those things when you're making the next decision. Also, it kind of pits us against one another, right? There's a lot of like, oh, this school is the better elementary. Oh no, I'm from over here. Every single school in Verona is a great school. And we have to keep that equality across all four of them, because there are things that happen. I hear the kids talk, oh, this is what happens over here. Oh, this is where all the special ed students are, right? That makes this as a less smart school. It's ridiculous. We have to give equity across the system.
Sorry, your time's
Thank
up.
you.
Thank you, though.
Hi, my name is Shannon Stanley. I live on 32 Malvern. I'm also a parent of a current first grader. In addition, I work as an inclusion specialist. I work on a grant with the Department of Education. So this is language I'm accustomed to hearing. I work with many school districts throughout the state that have encountered similar problems, and they have merged funding between special education and general education to make things work for their students. The principles of inclusion are access, participation, and support. And what's really lacking here is the support for the students, the support for the families, and most importantly, the support for the teachers who are at the front line. Without this support, this is an impossible job. As many parents have said already, the profile of our grade is very unique. There are many students that have IEPs already. And I know that the recommendation is no more than 3 students with an IEP in a general education classroom. We're exceeding that, and it is going to get even higher with fewer classes next year. And you know, there are ways that we could access state grants. There are inclusion grants. There are different ways that we can get more support in place, but taking away a class from an already struggling school with a lacking support system already. I was a volunteer in the school on Friday, and the teachers' morale is not good. They were yelling at the students. They had very poor morale right now, and they are really unsupported. And it's only going to get worse. We're going to lose our very qualified teachers. They could go to other districts where they're going to get more support, and that is going to be a huge detriment to our district. So, thank you.
Yeah.
Hello. Good evening, everyone. Thank you for the eye contact and the acknowledgement that I'm standing before you. I do appreciate it. My name is Carrie Metz-Cannon, and I am a 3rd-generation alumni of Lanning Avenue School. I live on Lanning Road, so I get to see everything that goes on across the street. The good, the bad, and the ugly. I also want to share with you that my dad served all 12 years of my education in Verona on the Verona Board of Education and was president for 2 terms. So I do, as a child growing up, understand the struggle that you have to effectively pass a budget, to effectively monitor the schools, to be effective in any way. It takes a lot of camaraderie. It takes a lot of muscle, takes a lot of brain work. And I do understand that as a child growing up, watching my dad go to his meetings, proud to serve this school. As I am a disabled adult, he made sure that I had my rights recognized and my education preserved for me, as there really was no special ed back in the late 70s. There was no availability for anything for me. So now that being said, my son is in 1st grade going into 2nd grade. He has an IEP. He's one of the children that they're speaking of. So I just want to say that I'm thankful how much he has thrived this year with the 3 classes, with his teacher, Mrs. Majestic. He has thrived with support in the classroom. He gets one-on-one time with her. She spends time with him. She gets to sit with him and all the other students. Now, dump him in a class with 10 plus more children, I'm really worried that he's not going to get what he needs. Yes, he has an IEP. Yes, he has a shared aid, but he's not going to get from the teacher what he should. So I am very passionate, as are all of the men and women behind me. We're all here representing our children, but I do, like I want to say that I do recognize how tough it must be to pass this budget. But what is true is what we've all said. The bottom line is it can't just be the budget. I did get some emails back from some of the board members, and I have to say, there was no acknowledgement of the children per se as the top priority. It was the budget first, and then a listing, a breakdown of all the numbers. I understand numbers come down to it, but we have to try to put the children on the top first and then figure out the numbers. It just can't be the budget. There has to be some way. And maybe if you come to us as the parents in the community, maybe there's a way that we can pool all of our resources, lawyers, doctors, other teachers. There's got to be a way we can pool our skills, our resources into helping overcome just the budget issue, if that's all it comes to. So again, thank you very much for your time.
Okay, anyone else? Seeing no one approaching, we will move on to discussion items. Any old or new business that you would like? No, we don't do it. No, we had one last time.
I just want to, I guess this is kind of new and old and current business. I do want to just thank everyone for coming, because as Chris or Mr. Walker said earlier, we've all been, I think the reason that we're sitting, I've said this before, but the reason that we're sitting here is because we sat there, right? So really, it's, I understand where you're coming from. I do want to just address some of the, the work that we have done, and what I do feel has been very transparent when it comes to the budget and some of the things that we have advocated for as a board. And we've discussed these things publicly, obviously. But, we have, aside from the Joint Council Committee, we went to a delegate assembly, put forth a resolution to try to urge a resolution from the boards to go to the state to get our fair share of money from pilot funding. This is a major issue in Verona right now for the schools. It's something that we have been discussing at every meeting. If you do go back and listen to the meetings, which I understand they're very boring and it does take a lot of time, but it is something that we have been discussing at, I would say 90% to 100% of the meetings. So we did bring that forth. It passed at 95%. So hopefully that resolution that our board did bring forth now goes to Trenton, and hopefully that is one step forward. We have written letters to our local assemblymen, to state senators. We have done those things. So, you know, I share that because yes, we've discussed that publicly, but I wouldn't expect anyone to find those seconds and minutes in meetings. But I do want you to know that we have been advocating for this budget. We have been advocating for money. We have been trying to say, these are the issues that we're facing. We are going to continue facing these issues. They're not going anywhere. We need the support, right? So this is an issue right now. We understand this issue right now. This issue is facing is I guess one grade level in one school, but it's not, right? It's a much bigger issue. So I do think that I wanted to just, as old business, kind of reinforce the fact that we have been advocating as a board to the state and to everyone that we can. And I think that that's it.
I wanted to add Mrs. Ferrara's point, particularly about the pilot funding. As everybody who goes to these meetings knows, I despise pilot funding as it is designed to take money away from the schools. Well, it's not designed for that, but that's the impact. Yeah, excuse me. And Mrs. Ferrara and Mrs. Verzella have been working tirelessly to try to find solutions on that area. And in fact, a little better than a month ago, we had a joint meeting with our colleague or our fellow Verona residents on the town council, describing to them in great detail the risks that we need to come tax money to come to the schools. And this is a very
I just want to say a point of clarity. It's not that pilot funds aren't allowed to come to school districts. The town council has chosen not to share those funds with the school district. So those are
thank you.
two distinctions.
And the resolution that was passed was to have something in law stating that they must be shared, that the schools must get their fair share.
Right. And
if you look, and I don't want to, I'm sorry, I do keep interrupting. If you do look at the joint meeting we had, I do pull out the numbers that we do not receive from the township. And I would encourage people to look at the township's budget to see where those funds are being spent.
Yeah,
no, thank you. You just said exactly what I was going to say. And I was commending your effort. Somebody implored us to be creative. And it literally takes a village on this. And these are part of the conversations that we do open to the public. And it is something that, again, with children at the top of our minds, this is why we are having those discussions, every single one of us.
So people understand who is on your board. We have a superintendent and principal. We have a literacy specialist. We have Pam, who has been in Verona her entire, no, you're not your entire life. You tell me from high school, from high school. I'm a special ed attorney. Mike's children all went through Verona schools from K through. From Lanning all the way up. So people here are dialed into the needs of the education community.
If someone asks for the why, I'll tell you the why. In 2008, Governor Christie passed a law that said the local school boards could raise a 2% property tax increase levy. That's the max. And the idea of it was to kind of curb some of the contentious negotiation between local school boards and locals associations when they're trying to come to a contract. The issue that Verona had is that in 20, 30 years ago, we were really at the bottom of our district factory groups, which means kids that are of the same socioeconomic background in comparable schools. How much does the taxpayer pay for their kids' education? Verona was at the bottom, and you could, look at the budgets that Jorge's sent the last 5 or 6 years. They're probably all on the website. You'll see, like we're last. So when you're last, your 2% is worth less than the Maplewood or the South Orange, who's at the top. Their 2% is going to get more value. We heard the idea of like talk to the teachers, and listen, I'm pro teacher. I was a teacher. I had 30 kids in my class. But you got to understand, like when we love our teachers in Verona, when we negotiate their contract, we're not negotiating with the Verona Education Association. We're negotiating against them. If we negotiated with them, they'd get a 10% salary increase, and we'd have to cut a whole lot more people. So it is a complicated issue. I believe that as someone who has taught classes of 31 and 32, I think that I totally understand the sentiment and the attitude of the audience. But I think we should have a token of faith in really good teaching. Because a really good teacher is going to plan for, you know, what they have in front of them. And I get that it's not good news, but the budget's already been passed. So this is where we're at. If you know, I guess what I'm gathering from the sentiment of the crowd is that they're asking the superintendent to consider, you know, possible reallocation of staff. But as far as the budget, like, that's been approved by us, and it's been approved by the county. That thing's locked in. And that's the situation we're at. But there's one thing I didn't want to say this, but I'm going to say this too. The one comment that just rubbed me the wrong way was the idea that if there is smaller class sizes, special ed students, the special ed population go down. If a student has a special ed education IEP, that means that they have a learning disability. Like that's something that's a disability that they have. That's the one point that I want to make clear, that I don't think there's a correlation at all between A and B. But that's my point.
And just to just to throw out some more information, you know, when we talk about budgets, our healthcare increases were 11%, 12% this year, with a 2% max. Our teacher salaries went up 3.25.
Tomorrow is 3.5. I mean, next year's 3.5.
And that's on the low end of the most
Right.
recent teacher contracts
Right.
signed
If
in the last
you
couple of
look at the
years.
other teacher and you look at the other teacher contracts that were signed around the same time as us, they're at that or probably a little bit above, because we kind of got in there early. You know, so, and when we look at staffing and we look at, you know, back office staff, Miss DiGiuseppe, Mr. Cruz, and I believe Ms. Palmarisi, you guys share an admin.
Not Mrs. Palmer's.
No.
She shares an admin with Dr. Miller and the facilities department. I mean, we're already sharing staff on the back end.
And you can't, you know, and everyone, you would like people, you know, not to maybe have admin. To get her job done, she needs to have an admin. It's just a fact of life. Your CEO needs an admin. She is our CEO, he is our CFO. They share. You know, so when we're talking about cutting things, we cut IT. We cut, we found a new web host that's cheaper. We found Parent Square, a new version of that is cheaper. I can't even think, phone lines that are cheaper. Like, we wanted to do increases in terms of additional video cameras, additional security measures. Those all went to the
50,000 in
wayside.
Stipends. Just like
Stipends, we
there.
cut thousands of dollars in stipends to administrative and staff and teachers.
Not teachers.
Not
And
teachers.
not teachers,
Sorry,
so
sorry, admin, sorry, I apologize. Not teachers. So these are all cuts that we have made before we even thought about making this joining of classes. Now, and I'm a mom, I have two daughters, 10th grade. They went through FN Brown with classes of 25, 26. They went through, one is an AP student and one has an IEP with a significant learning disability. And, you know, it worked. Is it ideal? Do we want 25 students in the class? I don't think anyone does. But then we're also look at New Jersey. West Orange just cut 98 teachers. 98 teachers next door. Wayne cut 110. Tom's River, I was over 100, and they were talking about classes of 40. Like it was kind of crazy what they were talking about. Patterson is also, East Orange had to cut teachers in the middle of the school year.
So did Nutley.
So did Nutley. So this is, when we talk about how this happened because we have a low tax base. We have a low ability to raise our tax levy. And we
we're
have,
underfunded.
and we're
And we're
underfunded.
By $800,000 on adequacy from the state of New Jersey.
If you let me raise taxes 10% to fix the problem, of course I'm going to vote yes. Like we asked Jorge, what's the max we could raise? And that's, he told us the number and we voted yes, 5-0. Like that, we're not fighting
and
for kids.
I think too, we, you know, even in this, you know, when thinking about like students first, right? We're here because students are first, right? You know, we're volunteering our time and putting in the work outside of this to advocate for all students, K-12, right? My kids now are in middle school, but I, you know, made this choice because I wanted to advocate for the children of Verona, because I believe in our schools. So, you know, while we're cutting and doing these things, we did find funds that I recognize that I might be a little biased here, but that I am proud of in the fact that we are bringing in a new literacy program, right? We are bringing in that structured literacy. We are providing that support. And we did find money to increase pay for our paraprofessionals so that we can compete with neighboring districts and offer our paras their fair share, right? What they deserve. And because we need them, right? Because we don't want to have to pull from agencies. So while we were cutting, we did, you know, really have targets and have goals. What is important? What do we need? Where can't we cut? And we did make those choices as well.
And Mrs. Pererna, everything you described is part and parcel of every single board meeting that we have, every discussion that we have in the public since the beginning of time is about these issues. What can we best do financially for our children? And everything that we do has that top of mind.
There'll be another opportunity at the end of the meeting if you want to come back up. Thank you.
So I just wanted to add, in my work in the last 3 years with Mrs. Giuseppe, one of the things that we've seen, I believe we're aligned when it comes to supporting schools with the fiscal resources that our district has. One of the things that we always look at is how can we impact the classroom the least? And I believe this current budget is a reflection of that. As we see the impact in the surrounding school districts on reduction in teachers, we actually avoided doing that in this budget. And as much as possible, whenever possible, that's always the route that we will always take. The other piece that I just wanted to share is that this district is as lean as it can get right now. As we shared, President Vearelli shared that we share an admin assistant, and in addition, the business office that I oversee, it just has one accounts payable person, one payroll person. That's it. I don't have an accountant. I don't have an assistant. Basically, I'm doing my own bookkeeping. It's basically I would love to have an assistant that's able to do the accounting for me, but it's something that what it is like, and if it's going to reduce the overhead component where we could actually hire more teachers, I'm all for it. Anywhere that we could find efficiencies, that's something that we always look at. How can we be more efficient? Or we're always looking with a lens of where can we reduce costs? So for the last 4 years, we've been reducing costs on copier leases. I think that was a huge savings for the district, with $60,000 in the contract. We always look at, we did an audit on our telephone lines. We did a replacement of the providers. And there's always areas of improvement with healthcare costs, utility costs, et cetera. But the other challenge, in addition to the 11% increase on healthcare benefits, we're also seeing utility, they're anticipating a 17% increase this coming June. So that's another area where we're seeing, okay, now we have to brace ourselves for operating costs to go up.
Transportation.
So transportation is always a big one too. Yeah.
And the
It's going to keep going up. Like,
and
you know, someone in the audience said, you know, use this as I'm paraphrasing, but like use this as a resource or let us help you. But like 90% of the stuff we're going to buy ain't being made in America, because 90% of the things everyone buys is usually made overseas. Like if it's likely that things might only go up in price. We have a fixed rate of what the salaries are our biggest expenditure. We have a fixed rate that shows the next 2 or 3 years, whatever it is left, this is what the staffing costs are going to be. Insurance just told us we're up 10%. And now you're telling us PSE&G saying you're going to go up. Like, yeah, we're going to need help. I
And
guess
then
this is it.
the $800,000 gorilla in the room too is that the money we get from federal funding that goes toward our special education budget. If that goes away, if that goes away by the state of New Jersey, we're obliged to find that money.
I think it's,
Yeah, just if IDEA funds do go away under, no matter what the IDEA changes to, if it changes under New Jersey regulation, we have to provide the same services. It's not only a legal requirement, it's also a moral requirement, that we educate every child that comes to our schools, in the best way that we can. So even if IDEA goes away and the federal government says we no longer have to provide special education services, New Jersey says we do. And we follow those.
I also think that something else that we've done over, we've done a lot of cost savings, but in an effort to add to this budget where we needed to add. In 2022, when I started here, we did not have inclusion at the elementary. We did not have inclusion for special education students in any of our elementary schools. So we found the money to hire the staff to provide the least restrictive environment for our special education students in K-4. That's a legal requirement. But we didn't do it because it's a legal requirement, because no one in Verona did it for years, and it's always been a legal requirement. We did it because it's, what's
I
that?
remember asking Dr. Moriello, which elementary school had the inclusion classes? Because I wanted my daughter in that. And he told me there are no inclusion classes in K-4 in Verona. And this was when she was in kindergarten.
But
So
those positions that we added do take down what we can allocate for other positions. But that was a decision we made because that's in the best interest of kids. So this board and Mr. Cruz and I have been trying to balance a very difficult budget that's not going to get easier. This is my 13th year as a superintendent. So I was working as a superintendent when, actually I was director of curriculum when Governor Christie made the 2% budget cap. We all looked at each other then and said, this is going to get harder every year.
Other thing that I think, and Mr. Cruz, correct me if I'm wrong, because I'm really speaking off the cuff right now and just kind of by memory. But I believe that there was an October 13th, was that the deadline that we needed to share the numbers for free and reduced lunch and for any additional funding, right? We didn't have any numbers of new students that were coming into the district who would qualify for free and reduced lunch at that time. So we were not able to apply for any grants, for any federal funding to support those students because we didn't have the numbers. So now that puts us in the school year of 25-26 without any additional funding to support students with free and reduced lunch. We currently pay for, any free and reduced students out of our budget. So that's been the custom of Verona for years. And we have been able to do that. However, when there's an increase of students, right, there's an increase of funds that are needed, and we didn't have the information to apply for any of this funding beforehand. So for this 25-26 budget, it's another area where we are kind of using what we have and waiting to see how many additional students we have and what we can apply for the 26-27 budget.
Right.
And we did request information from the township and the management company as to how many school-age children would be moving in. And we were from the flats, and we were not provided any information. We had encouraged them to have them register early so that we can count them on our roll, and we were not provided any information or they were not provided any packets to enroll early.
It's hard. It's really difficult, as you can imagine, to make decisions when you literally don't have the information to make the decisions, or it's hard to apply for grants when you don't have the numbers. You literally can't apply for it, right? So we have found ourselves, unfortunately, in this situation, even after advocating and writing letters and requesting, we don't have the information.
I think the other piece too that Mr. Cruz started to talk about is that we're lean. Other districts that are have things like literacy coaches, like West Orange does, they can reduce staff and reduce the heavy lift on the budget without affecting classroom. We don't have that here. We don't have the extras. We have 2 interventionists, reading interventionists across the district. That's it.
When did Verona get full day K?
They got full day K in the 2019 referendum.
All right.
Yeah. So.
I want to keep it. I'm not saying we shouldn't get rid
No,
of it.
no, of course not. Well, we can't because it was a referendum. No, but we talked about a lot of different ways, you know, the surplus came up. Those are not things that we can do long-term. They're one-offs, right? That's if you have a furnace that goes down and it's $500,000 to replace a furnace at HBW or the high school. We looked at going out with a second question and raising taxes with a second question. Here's the problem with that. If the second question fails, we can't use district money to hire teachers. So we looked at a whole host of options to not cut this one classroom position. And frankly, I went into this budget at $1.3 million gap in where we were and where we had to get to. And I thought it was going to be more than one teacher. The fact that we got it to only one.
We're going to need at some point that referendum though.
We are.
And, you know, we're going to need people to support it to fix these kind of problems.
Yep.
Do have to be careful with sacrificing the long-term health of the school district for a short-term change. What I can think about is the referendum that we did for all the facilities work. That was the result. It was that big and we needed that much because for decades, maintenance was not done. There was stuff just was let to sit and to not be fixed and to not be replaced and to not be updated, painted. I mean, I remember doing the tour of the high school and there was like holes in the lockers in the gym because it was just let to rot. So we don't want a decade, 2 decades from now, people to say, well, why do we need another referendum? Why can't Verona schools be maintained? So we have to balance long-term health of the school district, not just the facilities, but in general, with everything else.
You know, the way I see it trending, right? It's going to be a slow bleed for a while until a board finally says, listen, we're going to put it to a ballot and, you know, this is going to be our marquee accomplishment. I think the sentiment that I agree 100% with from the audience is that we all love living in Verona. It's like a weird cult kind of place. And, you know, I do believe, you know, there's going to be some one issue voters who are going to vote no matter what. But that's how it works. Like if we worded it a certain way, saying we're doing this to lower class size or to increase staff size, and the town votes no, then it's a no forever. That's how the law works?
That's what the county BA informed us. We actually started the conversation when there was some pressure to hire security personnel for each school. And if we put personnel on a referendum or on a second question and it goes down, we cannot use, am I saying this correctly? Yeah, checking with Mr. Cruz, because he's the one actually that spoke with Mr. Ferrara at the county office, that we can't.
We could twist his arm.
That's a whole other story. I think also, you know, this has come up at meetings. We've had these discussions. But I think that we do have to continue the discussions about the grade band schools. I know it's not a popular conversation, and I know that we love our community schools, myself included, value them, want them. But I think that at some point as a community, we have to decide like what is the priority? What do we really want? Do we want the community schools or do we want to look at options to do grade band schools and take a look at the benefits of that, right? And truthfully, when I say that out loud, instruction is the first thing that comes to mind for me, right? So yes, we're talking about budget now, but when I think about grade band schools and I think about the fact that we can really hone in on a K2 school for structured literacy, or I don't know if that would be the band, but right, and we can hone in on PD for an upper elementary school, like
We have an
that's.
odd number of grades in our
Okay,
elementary.
so that
this
just came, but
makes it
my
harder,
point
but
is,
yeah.
like, instructionally, I think that it could be good. But I do think that this is something that we have to really consider, discuss, and have the numbers for, because, you know, obviously it would be too late now, but for 26, 27, like, is this something that we want to do? And I think that it would be really important to have the community input, to have these discussions, and to make sure that we're all part of the discussions, right? That it's not just us at the table having it, that everyone is a part of them to make this decision, because it would be a tremendous shift. It's something that could be very beneficial, particularly because we know what's coming down the pike when it comes to the budget. But I really do implore us all to have some serious conversations about this, and bring the community in on it, whether it be committee meetings or, you know, how we would do a strategic plan, and really flush it out, so that if we do decide to go that route, we do have community support, because I think that would be really important. And also that we make those transitions in the best way possible.
At a certain point, it's probably going to have to be one or the other or both, right? So I would, if we can get Kyle to the next meeting, just to kind of give us like the whole, you know, soup to nuts of how this referendum works, but you know, because it's just going to be the same thing probably every year for the next couple of years if we don't have, you know, eventually we have to take action. So the more information we can get, I think it'll be better.
Okay, so moving on to action items. Can I get a motion to pass action items personnel A1 through A 14?
I'll move it. Unless you want to talk about it.
Yeah, I have a
Well,
question.
well, we have to make a motion first and then we talk. Yeah, you move it. Moved by Mr.
I'll
Walker,
second.
second by Mr. Boone. Any discussion?
Go, you go. Sorry. Can you talk me through a little bit, Mrs. Di Giuseppe, on, I believe I'm looking at the right one, A8, what's the goal?
Of the extended school year program?
Yeah.
Well,
For,
It's a legally mandated special education summer enrichment program.
okay,
it's to
it's
prevent,
tied- that-
yes,
thank
it's
you.
legally mandated. It's not for all special education students, but students that are at risk for backslide, educational
Got
backslide.
it. Okay, that's the part I didn't understand. Thank you.
One quick thing for A4, and I'm sorry if we did discuss this, but can we just kind of talk through very quickly the justification of the change in title?
This, we've been talking about this change for over a year. So this actually, because it's on the agenda with this, it looks like it's linked to the change in Lanning. It's not. Mrs. Kohler currently is the supervisor of special ed, so she goes across all 6 schools and she supports the special ed teachers. The bulk of the special ed teachers in the elementary world are at FM Brown, because that's where we house our learning language disabilities program, and our LSS program, sensory, and I don't know the acronym because it's not, no one else calls it that except for Verona. Thank you. So in putting, that's where she spends the bulk of her time.
And the preschool program. The preschool.
And the
program is
preschool
also-
program,
yeah.
and the preschool program at Lanning, and the multiple, the ESL program at FM Brown. So by changing her title and having her work more directly with the principals there to better support the teachers at that level, she still will be supporting teachers at the middle school and high school, but there are fewer. Let me think, there's one special education teacher at Brookdale. I mean, it's a much lower amount. So it was in my mind to put her there and give her that title, house her there, and let her work directly with the 2 principals that have the largest population of special needs.
it through that role. I know that, I don't know if it was on here, that is the code of conduct on the agenda
It should be
tonight,
on
or
the
was that a
agenda.
first review? Okay. So, I know in the code of conduct, the idea of restorative practices was on there to try
Yes,
to
it's
bring that into the
E1.
elementary school. Okay. So then is that also something that she would be able to, is she already trained in restorative practices? Is that something that?
Well, I don't know that she's been formally trained, but she is a believer in it and has you know, because I'm not trained in it either, but
okay.
I've been reading about it for many years.
Yeah, okay,
Yes.
so then, so that's something that too, she would be able to
Yes.
bring to elementary school and kind of support in that way when it comes to behaviors and things of that nature. Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Anything else? Okay, Mr. Cruz, can we please have roll call?
Mr. Walker,
Yes.
Mrs. Ferrara,
Yes.
Mrs. Prisco,
Yes.
Mrs. Frizella,
Yes,
Mr. Boone.
Yes.
Motion carries.
thank you. Moving on to education, can I get a motion for B1 through B8, please?
So moved.
Moved by Mr. Walker,
I'll second.
second by Ms. Ferrera. Any discussion?
I think just really quickly, again, just kind of, I didn't realize that the code of conduct was right there, but speaking to that, so with that new code, would that be something that principals would turn key to teachers or that teachers will get?
Yes, that's already started actually. Well, there were teachers that were on the committee to create this
Okay.
from each school. And also Mr. Monticelli and Dr. Lanzo ran it in terms of the two administrators that were kind of took the lead on reforming the elementary code of conduct. And they've already begun to at the last faculty meeting unrolled it.
Don't I imagine that the administrators would administrate discipline, correct?
Yes,
Okay, very good.
but there are components here that take, yeah.
Ask, and this might be more for Mr. Cruz. B2, is there a reason why we're getting the tuition payment so late in the year from Cedar Grove?
So we realized that there was no board resolution back in August. So the contract was done, but there wasn't a board resolution.
Okay, thank you. Anything else? Okay, can we please have roll call?
Walker,
Yes.
Mrs. Farrar,
Yes.
Mrs. Prisco,
Yes.
Mrs. Rosella,
Yes,
Mr. Boone.
Yes.
Motion carries.
thank you. Moving forward to athletics and co-curricular, can I get a motion for C1, please?
So moved.
Moved
I'll
by Mr.
second.
Boone, second by Ms. Prisco. Any questions, any discussion? Seeing none, can we please have roll call?
Mr. Walker,
One question, just because the volunteer football coaches, and it's awesome that they volunteer. It's awesome. Do they get any sort of like, do the booster clubs give them, so they get a little something?
It depends on the sport, but yeah, they get.
It's up to the boosters, all right? Then that's all I had.
And
Thank you.
sometimes the assistant coaches will split their stipend with them as well.
Cool, all right. Then I vote yes.
Mrs. Farrar,
Yes.
Mrs. Prisco,
Yes.
Mrs. Rosella,
Yes,
Mr. Boone. Motion carries.
thank you. We have nothing on facilities. Moving forward to sorry. I flipped.
Finance.
Okay. Moving forward to finance, can I get a motion for E1 through E5?
I'll
Moved by-
second.
Moved by Mr. Waka, second by Mr. Boone. Well, first I just want to thank the New Jersey State Bar Foundation for their $600 donation. And I want to commend the VHS Environmental Club for their fundraising and donations to various charities that they have chosen. Is there any other comments or questions? Nope. Seeing none, can we have roll call, please?
Mr. Walker,
Yes.
Mrs. Farrar,
Yes.
Mrs. Prisco,
Yes.
Mrs. Rosella,
Yes,
Mr. Boone.
Yes.
Motion carries.
moving forward to governance and policy, can I get a motion for F1?
I'll move that.
I'll second.
Moved by Ms. Prisco, second by Ms. Ferrera. Any discussion? Seeing none, can we please have roll call?
Mr. Walker,
Yes.
Mrs. Farrar,
Yes.
Mrs. Prisco,
Yes.
Mrs. Rosella,
Yes,
Mr. Boone.
Yes.
Motion carries.
thank you. Okay, moving forward to public comments. Anyone from the public wishing to speak on any matter? please approach the podium once recognized. Clearly state your first and last name for the record. You will have 3 minutes to address the board. There will be no cross dialogue during this public portion. If there's a question that can be answered, only the superintendent or board president can respond, and will do so at the end of all comments. You may be granted 1 time to speak, and there will be a total time limit of 1 hour for public participation. Again, we note there will be no back and forth, and we request that you remain respectful. Thank you.
Hi, Cassidy Pererna. I just had a couple of comments based upon the information that you all had provided in the middle of the meeting. I did watch the entirety of that joint Board of Ed Town Council meeting, and it definitely was enlightening in regards to the pilot program. I know this is not an open conversation, but I do have some comments and questions regarding that as to, I know that Ms. Verzella had requested that seat at the table, and I do think that that is very important. I do plan on speaking to the town council in regards to that to help support the board. I think that that is very important moving forward. So I do think that it's important that everyone pays attention to those meetings and speaks to the board on behalf on how to better support our Board of Ed with the constraints that they are feeling in the upcoming school district years. Also, in regards to what we have going forward, right? Because we kind of got lost in what we're here for now is advocating for this particular class at Lanning. And while I am sympathetic to everything and I understand the cuts and the decisions that had been made, I don't want to be in your position, right? I'm not envious of the decisions that you had to make. I want to just reflect upon, we are just asking for this one specific class at this meeting, that it's just this class at Lanning, and there is a much bigger problem that needs to be addressed. To Mr. Waka's point, I think just a little bit of Verona history here, that when the town is given the appropriate information in the appropriate amount of time, Ms. DiGiuseppe, this is something that maybe you haven't experienced yet because you've only been here for a couple years. The town of Verona is special in that we get it done. If you bring us a problem and you say, this is the solution, we get it done. Every time we get it done. It was the referendum for the full day kindergarten. We got it done. It was the referendum for millions of dollars for the updates to the school. We get it done. But we need the transparency. We need the people, the outliers, the picketers in front of the town. I mean, 30 years ago, they tried to move away from our neighborhood schools. They tried to close Brookdale, and it was all because of the budget. And when I tell you, the town rallied, and it didn't happen. And thank God it didn't happen, because look, 30 years later, we'd be dying if we didn't have Brookdale. So I think that, to Mr. Waka's point, in the long term, we need to think of the solutions. Right now, I'm hearing a lot of problems. I'm hearing a lot of my hands are tied, and I really beg of you to look more for solutions. I thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, my name is Nathaniel Johnson. I live on land. I wanted to thank all of my neighbors for coming up to speak. And thank you all as well. I couldn't have said it much better. I was basically going to say that, like, unleash, obviously we're not going anywhere. Unleash the talent in this town. I'm an occupational therapist. I work for the West Orange Board of Ed. They did a full-time reassessment that came into effect this year. We're doing one in Verona. This will come next year. State aid cuts are probably further going to happen. We're going to need to get creative and pretty intense. So let us know what we can do and where to look for the extra money within the town, maybe. And, we'll help you guys find it. Right.
Thank you.
Hi, Sarah Oconor again. Just a couple of questions. I know rezoning the elementary schools has been in talks and been on the table. One of the things that was brought up that I do have a direct question about is the literacy program that is being implemented at the K-5 level, I believe. From what I understand, and please correct me if I'm wrong, but the pilot for this program only began within the last couple of months. If reconfiguring elementary schools is on the table, is it of any consideration to hold off on that and do a true full year pilot before fully buying in? And really utilizing the resources at the elementary level, particularly in K-2. So many of our teachers have Orton training, letters training. I was here when Readers and Writers Workshop came, and I mean, I wish I had a lens into 10 years later. We know it's not a conducive program, and we know we're phasing away from it, which is, in my opinion, a good thing. But I do implore you to really utilize the resources of the teachers in the buildings that already have so much background and so much training. Get creative in those ways. As Joy Lorenzo had said, we have to get creative. And I think if we really look at the already, I mean, great assets of our staff, we can make some changes to preserve this third section, which again, I know kindergarten has a different threshold, but this third section was warranted in first grade as well. And I'm having a really hard time still thinking about a supportive administrative position that's going to work to, and believe me, I am all for supporting Mr. Freund. I work directly, he was my vice principal when I was a teacher at HBW. I have a great rapport with him, and I am all about supporting him. He's got a caseload over there with the preschool, but I'm still just having a really difficult time rationalizing, we need we need administrative help, but we are literally taking away a classroom teacher at the same time. I think the needs are still there. The numbers haven't changed. Forest had 3, we had 3, now we have 2, and they still have 3. And I know the numbers, we're splitting hairs. So I'm asking if that's been considered, particularly with the literacy program that's being implemented. True pilot for a full year. And again, please correct me if I'm wrong, but I think that there's a lot of resources at the, and I hate saying lower level, I hate saying bottom up, because to think of our teachers as the bottom is really hard to do. They are our greatest asset. And I just think that there are creative ways that maybe we haven't explored yet. So I just wanted to bring that to light. Thank you.
Thank you.
I just have a few quick questions. I'm sorry, my name is Stephanie Povarellic. Miss Verzella, you mentioned IDA, if that got cut and the funds were removed, you said you'd be legally required to continue funding special education. How would you do that?
It's a good question, because
That is
we
a
get
very
about
good question.
$600,000 of IDEA funds. They're not being cut for next year.
Okay.
But we're not sure with what is happening with the Trump administration and their changes in dissolving the Department of Education. Are we going to see? We were told to expect a 70% allocation in title funding. Now, the district doesn't receive a lot of title funding. And as I mentioned before, it has been cut over the past several years, kind of whittled away at. But that is also affecting our budget, because 2 staff members that were paid for with Title I funds are no longer being paid for with Title I funds. So they're back in our general budget. So all of these things make this year's budget so much more difficult.
Okay. And can we do anything in that instance to help with like Title I funding? Like, what do we, that's just federally regulated.
It's federal. It's the
Okay.
Every Student Succeeds Act, non-competitive grants. So every school district gets some funding, not every school district. Obviously those that are in district factor grouping J get a lot less federal funding than we do. But it's worth noting that school districts like Verona, because we don't get a lot of state aid and because we don't get a lot of federal funding, our 2% is really 2%. It's about 88% of our budget is on the tax levy. So when they limit what we can raise taxes, they limit what we can put into the schools. So what's really hard in Verona is that we have we struggle to maintain program every year, because we can only add about, what's the 800,000? About $800,000 a year. Now, if you take that 800 that we're allowed to add, salaries goes up every year. Health benefits go up every year. This year, we were allowed to add in 1.53% to offset health benefits. That still left us in a $60,000 deficit on health benefits because they went up more than we were allowed to do the waiver for. So these are things that are going to continue to impact not just Verona, but districts like Verona that are more adversely impacted by tax levy caps than school districts that get a lot of federal and state funding. We did get a slight increase in our state aid. What was the increase? 100 and about 100,000. Yeah. Because we're under, and we got that 6% because the state's recognizing we owe you 800,000. So we'll let you raise your taxes. No, I'm sorry. That was the waiver. We'll give you the, 6% increase on your state aid, even though we are underfunding you by 800,000. So, it's not. As a matter of fact, what we were told, I went to a meeting in Newark with Senator Ruiz and the Department of Education, and they said we have the state funding formula that we would love to use, and we calculate it, and then we look at what's in the line item, and they never budget enough to adequately fund all the schools in New Jersey. So those school districts that are not as lucky as we are, and with getting a 6% increase, actually got significant cuts to their state aid. That's one of the problems that West Orange had. So it's a complicated, and I appreciate everyone wanting to help. Having parents sit on a budget committee is hard because there's confidential stuff, and I mean there's whatever. I appreciate the offer. I'm just not sure how feasible it is.
I think
Best thing
we know we're
to
gonna
help is both.
If we keep
Yes.
getting, if you're going to guarantee me every year moving forward, the state's going to give us a 6%, cushion from the previous year on state aid, that's a great guarantee. We'll take it. And then, then the level of advocacy that we might need or the actions we have to take might be, a bit truncated. But even if it remains flat, right? If it remains flat, the next step is we're going to have to make a decision as how we're going to, all of us want class sizes to be manageable, and all of us want the kids to have as many nice things. And for as many parents come here, we also get the emails from people saying, "Hey, I'm on fixed income. When you're raising my taxes too high, it's affecting us." And we listen to them too. But I'm always going to be on the side of team. Let's do as much as we can for the kids. So I just feel like it's within the next 2 years, there's going to have to be something's got to break, and then something's got to, an action's got to be taken by this board, and we just have to diligently choose the right one.
And in terms of what I've done as the president of the board this year, I've reached out to every single elected official that represents us, as well as some that represent our neighboring townships. I've met with Congresswoman McGuire personally. I've written to Senator Kim. I've called Senator Kim's office. I've called Senator Booker's office. I've called Murphy's office. Corrado, all the.
Anybody pick up the phone?
No.
No.
I've even called the Commissioner of Education's office to try to speak with someone there.
I think too, and I commend you, and right, I think we're all doing this. I think though that across the state, right, they're getting flooded with these same requests and these same issues and the same problems. So I think going back to, what we were discussing earlier and really touching upon what came up several meetings ago was kind of like a punch list almost when we were talking about our facility. I believe it was our maintenance or facilities, like the things that are coming down the pike in the next 5 to 10 years. So we started to say, okay, what big ticket items are coming that we need to be prepared for, like the turf field, like major budgetary issues. So we had like a little bit of a punch list. And I think that we really do, like next meeting or the following, have to look at space, facilities. What will those costs be? Even if it is just, I'm not asking for a full proposal of, grade band schools and a full proposal with necessarily I'm drawing a blank, like costs related to it. But really, like, what is the plan? How are we going to use the next 6 months or 4 months or whatever it is to look at these really big decisions? And then I think at that point, we may be able to say to the community, hey, this is right? This is what we're seeing. This is what we're thinking. These are some opportunities to support, but we need like real tangible things to say, this is what we need. So I feel like if, as a board, we can have a goal set, whether it be 4 months, 6 months, to say, in that time frame, we want to really have an idea to say, you know, where are we going with this and where do we need the support?
And can we even do it?
And is it feasible?
Is it feasible?
Right,
And-
but without the conversations, then we're
Right.
just, you know, going in circles. So I think we have to really set,
Okay.
we've set goals as a board and we have so far hit all of those goals. So I think that we can do this one too.
Just one more thing. In the budget presentation that we did, Mr. Cruz and I gave 3 times this year. There's a slide that you might want to take a look at just because it kind of tells the story about where we are in Verona with what we spend on kids. We have the lowest per pupil cost of the schools, and that's, we've said it many times, that's nothing to be proud of,
Yeah, I agree.
right?
But you mentioned earlier something about like the town not giving you access to, well, not only information, because you didn't have access to figure out how many kids we're gonna need like free lunches. I mean, who's holding the town accountable like for those things?
Well, we ask for it. Who's holding the town accountable? Your fellow citizens.
And we didn't even know that this was like an issue and that you would requested that information.
But we speak about it at every single meeting.
In
We
in
do.
October,
mean,
I think I
I'm
went a
not saying
deep
you
dive.
don't speak
Yeah,
about it.
yeah,
Please, I know you guys
Yeah.
are doing what you have to do, but I'm saying like, can we more proactively get the information out to us? Like, just like after this meeting, like what's an immediate next step that like any of these parents can take?
Share the meeting.
Then
Like they're
share the
public
meeting.
meetings so that everyone has access to everything that we're discussing. So I think
And
it's
the next
important.
township meeting is
So would that be
Monday.
beneficial for us to show up to the
Sure.
township meeting? And then what do you want us to share? Like, is it not only, because I'll talk about like what's happening at Lanning and the fact that we're losing this teacher, but
I don't think this board's in a position to make a recommendation to any parent about how they should advocate right now, right? Because we
Okay.
still have to make a plan. But that said, you know, your group clearly has organized and advocated. So, you know, I think that you'll probably see the same arguments that we've made and things that we've discussed, but I think this board needs to choose a direction first and then ask for advocacy second. I think it's the wisest move. And I don't think we're prepared to even ask right now.
yeah, I'm just concerned that we're gonna wait too long. Cause like, I didn't even know this was an issue until it came to our attention last week. I never thought that we'd be losing an additional teacher at Lanning. And so that's what I'm saying, like, how long before we take action? Like, I don't want to wait too long. So I'm gonna go to the meeting myself. I've obviously, I think most of us here will probably attend. As you can see, like, we're very passionate about our kids. But what could we ask from the town? Like, I mean, one, that they be transparent with information. It was obvious that they didn't do a very good job with the management company in communicating to you guys. But what else are we able to ask from the town?
Oh, so as far as the information that came from the township, from the developer that developed the property across the street from the community center, the information from them to the township was not good at all. We asked continuously for information on the number of students that would be coming from that building. And Mr. Giuseppe and Mr. Cruz asked numerous times for numbers so we could have a benchmark of what we would be looking at. We still can be getting students from that
There are
development.
There are 21 more.
21 more attending, and
Well, they are either at or just under school age. So we do know that there are people that moved into Verona Flats that are ending their school year in their current school for obvious reasons. It's May. They don't want to change their students. So we'll be getting those students into our elementary, middle school, and high school that are already living in Verona Flats but are not attending our schools yet. We're seeing that's one of the reasons we're shifting a section to FN Brown, because we're looking at the last 3 or 4 that registered for September are potentially multilingual learners. So they will need the ESL component that's offered at Brown at the elementary level. And we know that there are 21 more students that could potentially, over the next 2-3 years, enter our schools.
But we're not sure where they're gonna go.
I make that selection. So
No, I just mean like, we're not sure if they're elementary age or
no,
middle school
we don't
age.
know, and they didn't offer us that information.
And why are they not, like, why are they allowed to not be transparent? Like, I'm so confused.
Show her way.
Well,
Okay.
right now we get 0%. So if you're asking for an ask, like that's the floor, because right now we get there, you can't go beneath it, right? So anything we can get above 1%. And it's but also, I appreciate, at all the points, I have a lot of respect for Mayor Tamboro and Alex and John and all the other councilmen. I did think that, what was written on Councilman McGrath's blog was unfair, and it was a poor representation of what actually happened at the meeting. I thought it was blame shifting, and I don't think there's anything wrong with putting pressure on a town who's prosperous because of the perception of its school system to support its school system. And we've heard a whole lot of, well, the school should have been planning this 10 years ago, when every councilman knows we vote on a budget every single year based on the state aid and federal aid, which are things that we can't predict.
Can't do it ahead.
And we're locked into the maximum amount we could raise in taxes. So they know, that's not that any other councilman said that, but one did, right? Or implied it, I should say. And that's wrong. So, I do think you should advocate strongly for it. I think that could only help our cause.
And then quick question, Ms. Giuseppe, you mentioned that there were 3 or 4 incoming to F and Brown that you thought needed ESL services, but you're not sure.
They are being screened now, but they came from a country that doesn't speak. I'm pretty
Got
sure
it.
they're going to need ESL services.
Okay, because
Yeah.
I was wondering if, like, for whatever reason, if they were screened and then, they didn't need that, like, would we consider like moving resources around? But it doesn't sound like that's the case.
Yeah, and the other hard thing, and I know no one wants to hear this, I have a class at Forest that's got 26 students in it now.
But what grade is it? Because like, I'm just
Third.
but I'm just sharing, like, the 2nd grade class is quite unique. I mean, you heard us speak about it, a lot of IEPs, a lot of 504s and landing. Again, I'm not going to reiterate, but
I know.
it is there are behavioral issues already with the 3 classes. Like, I hear from parents and like their kids are sharing that there's constant yelling, and I know you don't deal with the behavioral issues, and that's Mr. Freund's job. But like, these kids do need the additional resource. So I think what we can do now is go to the town meeting and advocate for our children there. Ask for transparency, and then to share the pilot funding. Is that what I'm hearing? Is there anything else we can do?
The one thing is important, and to be fair to the council, and I just want to make sure that, like, we're referring specifically to those pilot funds, not any general council funds or any general school, but we are speaking specifically to pilot funds, which is payment in lieu of taxes. So
And
it's basically,
it is a page on their budget. It tells you exactly how much
Right.
they get in pilot funds.
and so basically what a pilot fund is where the developer pays the taxes directly to the council. I mean, to the municipality, not to the council,
Yeah.
to the town. And then the town decides how it's distributed. Whereas if it were not a pilot funded building, that, like everything else, the taxes would be paid to the state, and then the state would distribute in the same formula. And then in that way, we would get the fair share per pupil. But we're getting 0.
I understand, and that doesn't seem fair because, like you said earlier, if people are moving into Verona because of the great schools, then that funding should be allocated to the board as well as to our schools. So thank you for that information.
Thank you.
Anyone else?
Lorenzo again, 44 Otsego. This is past my bedtime for a teacher, but I did want to just respond to the 26 students in the 3rd grade class. I know a lot of people in this town. I have lived here for 10 years. I'm very involved. I did hear about that class, and I did hear when that teacher excitedly told the class, "We're getting a new student." Usually they're excited. They fight over who's going to sit next to that student. They're moving the desk right by them. And their response was, "Another student? Where are we going to put them?" And then I did hear that that teacher had to move her desk out, then moved her desk back in to get her computer.
have
I
to
don't
move
think it
their
was
de-
Mr. Foyne, no, he's not the principal.
I'm sorry, Mr. Monticelli.
So, again, I taught third grade. That's a lot of students, especially a testing year. But we're talking about second graders, and I want to mention there's a lot of young second graders. There's summer birthdays. There's kids that are going to start second grade as a 6-year-old. So please try to think of a 6-year-old starting second grade with that many students. And not to be disrespectful, but I'm very curious when you said you mentioned Mr. Waka about having 30 students. What grade was that? If you don't mind me asking.
I was an excellent high school English teacher.
Okay, so I knew it. I have a good sense for this.
Like,
It's
why am
not
I-
a bad thing. We
Come
need
on.
to, but we are everything. I'm sorry. Like, we are elementary teachers. We are everything to these children, and not that you're not, but we like put everything out there for these kids. We're at their games, we're at their events. I mean, I'm gonna give a shout out. Miss Stuffy was at my daughter's. I mean, I'm gonna get emotional. I love our teachers in Verona. I want to be a teacher in Verona, but I'm already somewhere else. But Miss Stuffy was at that softball game for my daughter. My daughter like actually hit the ball at that game because Miss Stuffy was there. Last year, I actually wrote an email, and I'm sad to say I didn't get a response back, but I did write an email about Mrs. Knockomson. Both my children had her. Everybody loves Mrs. Knockomson, obviously, but I did write, a letter with a picture of, Mrs. Knockomson, and Miss Stuffy was also there at that time with my kids. Just saying that this is what us elementary teachers do. And we are very important to our kids. And this is like our point here. These are not high school kids that can work independently. These are kids that need help with a lot of things. They need their teachers. They need that attention. And on an ending note, we thought kids were more resilient before COVID. We were like, they're so resilient. They're so resilient. COVID proved to us kids are not that resilient. And we are still with those effects. We don't want to see those 50 kids like not that resilient after what they've been through. They're used to being in a small class. It's not like the other classes that they've always been in a big class. They are used to those small classes. They're used to those groups. And they're used to that noise level. And yes, we have to adjust as we get older, but just had to say one more. The teacher name.
Mrs. Verona, can I just wanted to follow on a point when we're talking about the town and pilot funds and just an element of fairness. While I agree with the board's view on this, one of the things we need to be mindful of is the pilot funding is an extremely sensitive issue, and it is something that we as a board need to speak at much more length with our colleagues on the town council and have discussions. It's very important that the town residents speak up about it, but also need to understand that there is a complex discussion points that the town is going to bring to the table, and we need to have a thoughtful and meaningful discussion on it. It's going forward, if we have continuing discussions, it's not going to be as simple as saying we need X and therefore we want it. We need to have that dialogue open. The second point, people are asking what they can do. Just remember, this is an election year. It's an off year, but we have a governor's race. We have other legislative races going on. Your voice matters, and please be active and please vote.
The only other thing I want to point out is that at the end of the budget period, after our budget was already submitted for this year, the governor did sign into law something called the, I'm sorry, I have it right here. Yeah, we did. It's brandy new. Brand spanking new. Tax levy incentive aid. So for next year, we can go above the cap, above the 2% cap for adequacy reasons. So that's a good news and bad news, right? Because that means your taxes are going up more than you would want them to go up, but it will give us the opportunity to raise our tax levy higher to try to help our budget. And we can go up a certain amount. What's the amount?
Up to the amount.
Oh, yeah, up to. That's gonna be a big percentage, but okay.
Is that still,
No, next year's budget, 26, 27, yes. Yeah.
and there's nothing the new governor can do one way or the other on that?
Depending on who we elect, they can make it go away.
But I think that's even more of a reason that we have to be prepared to see if we're gonna put a line on the ballot, because I think we have to be, even though we're all for the students, we want to make sure that we have everything that we can give, we have to also be mindful to not have a line on the budget plus a 2% cap after a 3% cap at some point. So I think that's even more of a reason that we have to go into next budget season with a really clear plan of what we're doing.
Good news is that we'll know who the next governor is before Mr. Cruz has to put together his budget. Unfortunately, this didn't come out until after the budget, and I don't know if that was purposeful or not, but it didn't become a possibility until after the budget was done. But we'll know in November. And in addition to the governor and legislative, there's also town council positions up this year.
Leave that there's more building. This is only phase 1 of the, right, or phase 2 of, I think, 6. Is that right? I'm not sure if that's actually.
Building in this, there is another area, we're not.
That's
sure-
stalled right
That's
now.
stalled right
Okay.
now. Yeah, by the Sunset.
Okay.
Yeah, that's stalled right now. And there's more, from what we've been told, there is more housing that has to come from somewhere, that's been identified.
Yeah, more than 100 units.
Of
Yeah.
low income housing.
Of
Affordable
moderate-
housing.
Affordable housing.
Affordable.
But it can be, depending on how the township, looks at it. I believe they could do senior housing. It doesn't have to have school-age children. But I am not an expert.
No,
in-
neither am I.
They can also have assisted living where they get a credit like 4-to-1.
Right.
So when we did put that resolution together and we talked about a seat at the table, that would make obviously a big difference, right? So if we're not going to absorb students, which we're happy to absorb students, but that makes a very big difference in decision making.
Correct, but and anytime you remove a rateable, which is a parcel of land that can be taxed, anytime you remove a rateable, it actually increases everyone else's taxes. Because we still have the same 2% that we can raise on our budget. It's 2% of the budget. It's not 2% of each individual house owner's taxes. So that additional fund, so like when they removed Annan from our ratables, what Annan used to pay us now got distributed among all the taxpayers in Verona as additional taxes. No, it wouldn't add a rateable because we don't, it would remove the rateable, but it would like proportionately, so say Annan was $100,000 they gave us, it would be, what, $10? I have to do my math and it's too late for me to do math. Versus, No, because not if it comes as a pilot. We wouldn't, the school district.
I understand you guys have to develop strategy, but you have some strategy around the pilot funding. Couldn't that also?
We need funds, not like the transparency would be nice, right?
Yeah.
But like, we need dollars and cents. That's what we need them to pay.
That's coming out of your budget, that could have actually not been state funding or federal funding, no?
If we've been that, in the grand scheme of things, it's such a low ticket item, but yes, I am a proponent of federal school lunches, yes. It's a mystery, yeah.
And these, all that would help.
What else? Sure, why don't you go up just so that the people who are at home can, no, it's okay. It's okay.
Cassidy Pererna again. I just had a question in regard to the pilot program. So these pilots that have already been established and I know you said you went to the state to, petition, the delegate, yes, to ask for our portion. So would that be in effect for the pilot programs that have already taken place in this town? So, or is that dead in the sand?
So I just want to explain what we did because I want to make sure that there's not any misunderstanding of it. So what we have as board members, we have an opportunity to I'm the delegate member, right? And Denise, right, to advocate on behalf of boards. So the way that the process works is you go to the delegate assembly as board member, the New Jersey School Board Assembly. Districts put forth resolutions. Other delegates vote on those resolutions. The resolutions that are passed then have an opportunity to go on to Trenton to then go on the floor for votes to be passed.
It's not so much that they get passed on the floor in Trenton. What happens is the NJSBA, which is the New Jersey School Boards Association, our association, like the BEA for teachers, then goes and advocates on behalf of the boards to pass
With the hope that they
with
get
the hope that they would then
So it's
bring.
the first
So
step,
it's
right,
the first
okay.
step in hoping that a resolution hits the state assembly, which then can become passed. So it's baby step one.
It's the first step. So
yeah.
we put forth that resolution.
Right.
For pilot funding to be
Right.
equally shared, and then we had a couple different points. You can find it, it's on, it must be listed in the board agenda, right? So it's
I think we voted on
Yeah.
it. Yeah.
Yeah, we did.
Yeah, we voted on it. Yeah.
That passed.
Okay.
So then that's step one.
Right.
But hopefully, my personal hope, and I think I could speak on behalf of the board here, or maybe not, but because so many districts across the state are feeling the same pain, and there's so many new buildings that are coming in, and we're getting new students. Again, it's wonderful, but we need the funds to fund the students that are coming in and to
Correct.
support the needs of the students. Because I think districts across the state are feeling this, our hope is that it does get some traction and that it does make it to the floor, and that we do see a change in the way in which these pilot funds are allocated.
I do know that in my little research that I did, surrounding towns do give lump sum payments to the
Yes.
school board or a percentage.
Neighboring
pilot.
towns.
Yes, Cedar Grove, I will name them. And so that the school board receives funding. And so I guess my question is that these pilot projects that have happened already and the second wave that is coming through, is it feasible to go to the town and say, hey, can we relook at this and maybe give a percentage back to the school board? Or is that not something that is even an option
They get a lump sum payment every year
from them?
from the developer for 30 years.
Right. and
The
so-
oldest active pilot site that I'm aware of is the apartments up at Hilltop. Yeah. And they get a lot of money for those. So they get a lump sum for 30 years from whenever that was developed. And then Annan, and there's one more. Is it something? Verona apartment or something. Yeah, there's one other
Oh,
small
the
one.
Park Avenue one, maybe?
Maybe, that might be it, yeah. So, but they're all listed out on a nice page on the user-friendly budget that the Township Council puts
Right.
out. And it tells you exactly how much they receive. If you look back, you
Right.
could probably Google and find out exactly what the payment is for each of the 30 years. That's also information that's public information that can be
Right.
shared. I just don't know the numbers off the top of my head.
No,
Yeah, yeah.
okay, I just
Yeah.
didn't know if it was an argument even to bring to the town council and saying like, those lump sums have already been determined. Is there a way to shivvy some to the board because our education system is bleeding right now?
When we asked at that meeting,
Yeah.
On whatever that was,
The
March,
end of March or
end of
whatever.
March, we were told that they cannot shift those funds, that they've already been allocated.
For that particular budget year.
But they've said those funds have been allocated
Okay.
for
And then I just had
projects.
one more question, and it was, or maybe a suggestion that maybe going forward, I think it was great that the town and the board met together for the first time, I think you said, and it was almost a decade. I think that that is maybe something to look at to happen more frequently. And that probably not at the end of the fiscal year when everyone's already done their budgets, maybe earlier in the year to try and see if one can help the other. It would just be a suggestion of mine. Sure,
Yeah.
no problem.
We tried several times.
I do want to point out, though, that the township does provide a lot for the school district that's unusual. So.
And we also
Yes,
provide the
yes.
host, but we
Yeah.
also host every recreation
we do.
basketball game,
Yes.
every recreation
Right, we do.
wrestling thing that like the school
Right.
does that too. So
Yeah.
I know that we kind of feel that we're equal, but
Right.
not that I ever want a civil war, but I'm not advocating for that. But like, imagine if the rec didn't have a basketball for their fourth grade and fifth grade basketball league, that's going to be a really big deal. And then of course this board's going to want to provide that, right? And it's nice that they mow the lawn and do some of the groundkeeping.
Right.
But I don't think that we owe them a thank you necessarily, considering that they've kind of hoarded this pilot fund and said nice things
Touche.
and said thank you and said, well, thank you for having these meetings, but then said every single time you get zero.
And I do know that my predecessor was asking for pilot funds at least
About
6 years ago.
And
4 years
Four
before you were
yeah,
here at
yeah.
least.
for me, like, it's.
Yeah.
been an
Oh,
And
up-
Mrs.
I'm
Fresky was.
sure, but I like everyone in your positions, your hands are tied at a certain point.
But I do believe that at the end of that meeting, it was said that we would continue. Listen, it was said, right? that we
Okay.
would
We're gonna
continue.
set up another one
It
in
was
the
said,
fall, but.
And yeah, I think end of March
I-
isn't
I-
helpful, but it was said. And that I do want to say to Mr. Waka's point in regards to the recreation department. I think that, you know, Verona loves their sports. And I think that if at the end of the day, when push comes to shove, what's going to go first? It's not going to be the schools, it's going to be the sports. And, you know, that's something that.
Oh, this
obviously-
room would get filled up
Yeah.
more
So
than
I-
you guys.
You know.
Besides teaching
I'm not-
classes,
You know, I could be the one to spread that dirty.
but besides teaching classes of over 30 kids, I've coached every rec sport in this town.
Yeah.
Sports and
But
music.
you and I understand the values of this town
Music.
the same way, 100%
100%,
lockstep.
yeah. Yeah, I mean, there's a reason that I didn't move out of the town. So, but I thank you for your time tonight, because I know it was a long meeting, and I appreciate your how candid you were and your transparency. It really is appreciated, and like I said prior to, I am not envious of anybody sitting at this table. And I do sympathize with the decisions that you had to make, you know, with this school budget. But I would be remiss if I didn't stand up here and speak for my little 7.5-year-old who loves Charlie Waka because he plays lacrosse with him every Saturday, you know? So it's just like, you know, I'm sure you've wrapped your head, but I just implore all of you to maybe think a little bit more outside the box if possible, to see if we can save this third section at Landing. So thank you.
Okay, thank you. Thank you everyone for coming. If I can now get a motion to adjourn our meeting.
So moved.
Moved by Mr. Boone,
Second.
second by Ms. Prisco. All those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Meeting is now adjourned. Our next meeting will be on May 28th. Confidential starting, May 28th, 27th.
It's a different night.
It is a Wednesday.
It's a Wednesday, yeah, that's why I was confused. May 28th, which is a Wednesday. Confidential at 6 and the public meeting at 7 in the Verona Learning Commons. Have a good night.